I'll tell you a story. A 15-year-old kid named Gabe looks out over cornfields from the passenger window of a truck. A rich guy in a Lamborghini drives by, smoking a cigar. Gabe looks at the car longingly and says he'll never be that guy. He didn't get a good start. His mom used to beat him up every day in their shitty apartment somewhere in southern Louisiana. But on his 15th birthday, she looked at her gun. "That's when I had to get out," he says. He skips town, hitchhiking on a truck bound for Los Angeles. The trucker is addicted to Swedish fish, constantly choking on them and losing control of his truck. Gabe helps him drive and does the Heimlich on him a few times. They make a good team. When they get to LA, the trucker tells him that he knows he's running away from something. "You're young. You need your parents," he says. Gabe just shakes his head. The trucker tries to offer him some money. He says that he can stay with him on the drive back to New Orleans, but Gabe runs away. On Skid Row, a huge homeless encampment in LA, a guy tries to steal Gabe's backpack. Gabe chases him down and punches him. People watch, but nobody does anything. Gabe hits him again, then again. It starts to feel good. He tells us the rush is better than anything he's ever felt. He then starts to beat up other homeless people who mess with him. One guy, another guy. It feels good. His muscles grow. He starts to love fighting. He enjoys it, chasing the rush every time. But then he hits a guy who has friends. They all beat him up, and the police officers find him half dead on the floor of a shopping mall. Gabe gets put into the hospital, then a juvenile detention center. He's still not even 16. In juvie, Gabe meets a 16-year-old named Marco. Marco presses him, asking if the reason he got beat up was because he was a male prostitute. He tries to fight him for this, but Marco easily beats him up. He teaches him proper technique on how to not telegraph his punches, and Gabe listens to him. Gabe starts coming out of his shell a little bit as Marco jokes around with him. He's actually a funny guy. In their cell, Marco teaches him how to play Go, a Chinese game similar to chess. Gabe tells him that it's stupid, but Marco tells him to give it a try. He tries it, and then they get addicted. Gabe comes out of his shell a bit more. Over their games, Marco asks Gabe why he loves fighting so much. Gabe tells him he just loves the rush of it. Marco tells him that stealing cars is way more fun than getting put into the hospital. Secretly, Gabe is happy that Marco is his first friend. Out of juvie, Gabe and Marco steal their first Lamborghini in Beverly Hills. It's an absolute shit show. They almost crash into a pack of social media influencers who call the cops on them. Gabe freezes up behind the wheel. Marco screams at him to drive. Gabe tells him, "I don't know how to drive." Marco pushes him to the back seat and swerves away from the cops, severely damaging the car in the process. Marco barely gets them out of there alive. They wreck the car, driving it to a secret location in the sewer under the city. Marco's pissed at Gabe for almost getting them killed. He asks if he has a death wish. Gabe admits that everybody who loves fighting has a little bit of a death wish, but he's not sure. Marco is disgusted. He's about to curse him out, but then big hands pull them out of the car. They scream at them for messing up the merchandise. The car is completely wrecked. They can't resell it. The boss, a dwarf in an Armani suit with gold teeth and tattoos, uses his cane to pull the boys to their knees. He's incredibly intimidating, but his Napoleon complex prohibits him from understanding that he's constantly making puns about how short he is. "You know, I have a short fuse. There's very, very little patience I have left. We need to fence cars to dwarf our competition." Gabe laughs at one of them, and the boss pulls out a gun, puts it against his balls, and asks him if he thinks he's joking. Gabe realizes that these people will kill them. The boss makes more short jokes, but they don't seem funny anymore. More like a test. The boss tells Marco that he can get the Lamborghini working again, but he has 7 days to get him a replacement. Marco asks what happens if he can't get the replacement in 7 days. The boss chuckles and says that nobody will find their bodies. The boss says he doesn't have time for losers. He has big plans for the direction of this city, and he'll kill anyone who gets in his way. He says the only way to pull LA out of the horrible situation it's in is to have a police force dedicated to making a profit for criminal enterprises, as opposed to stopping crime. But he says he can only implement this plan if he has enough cash flow. Luxury cars are a great source of cash flow. The boss tells Marco that he has 7 days to get a car worth over $2 million, or he'll kill them. Marco is angry at Gabe for getting him into this mess, and he tells him to get the hell out of his life. Angry, Gabe gets into a fight outside of a bar in East LA. He wins the fight, but he almost kills the guy in the process. People look at him with the blood on his hands in shock. He runs away. He hides in a street corner and remembers him and Marco laughing in their cell. He starts crying. He lost his only friend. Gabe goes to Marco's house and is surprised to find that it's a good home. He meets Marco's older sister Lena, who is a nurse and medical student that he instantly falls for. He tries to flirt with her, but she doesn't accept his advances at all. She hates his guts, because she thinks that he's the one who got Marco into his life of crime. Gabe tells her she just doesn't get it. She tells him that her parents left and she's been taking care of Marco since she was 16. They were never handed anything in life and always stayed together. She says she's going to become a dermatologist in 2 years and then they can finally move out of the hood. She asks him if he gets it now. Gabe says that he's sorry. She tells him to get out, but in a last-ditch effort, he tells her that he's never had an older sister like her. He wishes he did. She sighs. She says, Marco's really mad at you, but if you ask him to play that stupid Go game, he'll probably listen. Gabe goes into Marco's room and finds him pacing nervously. He's stressed out. He asks him to play Go. He accepts, but says, I still hate you. While they play, Gabe asks Marco why he never told him he has a good family life. Marco tells him that his sister is nice, but he'll never be good enough for her. Gabe tells him he thinks she just wants him to be safe, but Marco warns him not to talk more about his sister. Gabe asks Marco if he has a plan to get the $2 million. Marco tells him a half-assed plan to steal a car in Beverly Hills again. Gabe tells him that Beverly Hills is too heavily guarded. He has another idea. There's a house party coming up in Calabasas with a bunch of rich people. They're going to have at least 50 supercars for us to steal. Marco agrees because he has no better plan. As Gabe leaves, Lena tells him to wait. She tells him that there's a black car parked outside their house and asks him what it is. Gabe admits to her that Marco and him owe some people some money and they have to get it back. She asks him how much. He says, too much, but we can get it back. She asks him how and he says, don't ask. She goes up to him and touches his shoulder. She says, I know you've been hurt, but you can trust me. She tells him that Marco views him as a brother, and if he keeps him safe, he'll be treated like family. This triggers Gabe and he says, I don't have a family. He runs away before Lena can say anything. The boys show up to the rich people party dressed as male strippers. Marco tells him he can't believe he convinced him to do this. The butler of the party instantly suspects them, but the old Hugh Hefner-esque host of the party thinks they're hilarious. He takes them into the room full of rich, crazy people having a really weird masquerade party. A wealthy old plastic surgery couple try to flirt with Marco, but Gabe manages to convince them to go with him. When they get into another room, the couple tries to convince Gabe to lick their toes. Instead, Gabe beats them both up and steals their car keys. Lamborghini. Perfect. Meanwhile, Marco grabs the keys to a Bugatti from a sleeping, drugged-out couple. A 70-year-old coke fiend woman asks Marco if he's a bad boy. He kisses her and then walks away. She watches him leave and says, saucy. The butler notices this and speaks in Russian on his walkie-talkie. The boys meet up at the fire pit outside the party and show each other the keys. They understand that they have 2 cars and they both have to drive one to the base. Marco asks Gabe if he learned to drive since their last encounter. Gabe shakes his head. They go down to the parking garage and Marco gives Gabe a driving lesson in a $3 million Lamborghini. While he's teaching him to use the gear shift, they start getting shot at by Russian guards at the party. They've been caught. Marco runs over to the Bugatti and gets inside, but he gets shot in the leg on his way. He's hurt. Gabe and Marco drive out, following each other into the 3 a.m. LA streets. 4 Russian cars full of bodyguards, and the entire LAPD chase after them. Marco and Gabe follow each other and try not to get shot at. Marco does a crazy turn onto another street that Gabe can't do because he can't drive. 3 out of the 4 cars chase after Marco. He has the more expensive car. The last one chases Gabe, who is struggling to get the gear shift working as he weaves through traffic. Gabe runs a red light, the Russians run a red light. He figures out how to use the gear shift and accelerates to 300 miles per hour. Bobbing and weaving through traffic, Gabe catches a lucky break when the Russian car is smashed by a pickup truck. He celebrates until he sees across the highway where Marco is cornered by the 3 Russian cars. Gabe looks to the empty street behind him. He can run away again. But then he is struck with all the good moments he felt with Marco. Learning to fight, laughing in the cell together, Lena saying how Marco views him as a brother. He grits his teeth and says, there's no way you're dying without having me beat you and go. He smashes his $3 million Lamborghini into 2 of the cars, giving Marco an opportunity to drive off. He doesn't, screaming at Gabe to get into his car. The Russians open fire, but Gabe dives under one of their cars to be safe from the bullets. The cops arrive and start shooting at the Russians. Nobody knows what's going on. It's complete chaos. In the chaos, Gabe manages to dodge bullet fire and jump into Marco's car. Inside, he sees that Marco's lost a lot of blood. He's really hurt. He needs urgent medical attention. Marco asks Gabe why he didn't just leave. Gabe tells him to shut up and drive. Marco weaves through the cars and manages to get them out on the highway. 20 cop cars chase them. Marco's driving is pushed to the limit, but it's not enough. They drive straight towards a police barricade. 40 cop cars in a line with no way out. It looks like they're gonna die. Gabe asks Marco if the adrenaline was worth it. Marco says he doesn't know, but he's glad they're in it together. They grab hands, ready to die, when the boss, dressed as a police officer, steps out of one of the cars. The guys notice that all the police officers are the boss's men in disguise. It's a setup. They take them and the $8 million Bugatti to the station away from the real cops. Gabe and Marco hide their excitement. The boss's men take them back to their base and stitch up Marco's leg. The boss congratulates them on a job well done and hands them a briefcase with $1 million in it. He says that he needs car thieves of their caliber and asks if they want to work for him. Gabe and Marco embrace. Psyched. Gabe ends the story by saying, "People say that stealing cars is the greatest adrenaline rush in the world." Cut to Gabe and Marco stealing a bunch of cars like experts. But that's not true. Lena hugs Marco, seeing him safe. She then surprises Gabe with a hug of his own and kisses him on the cheek. Gabe is stunned. Gabe and Marco drink beer on Venice Beach, laughing with $2 million Lamborghinis parked behind them. It's not the greatest rush in the world. Friendship is. Okay, guys, that was my story called Fast Friends. Here's another video if you want to watch it. Thanks for watching. Bye.